All right, everybody, it's 5:31, so we're right on time. We'll call the meeting to order, and we're going to start with Chad, who's going to do our land acknowledgement.
Goodness peace to the Tlingit and Haida and Tsimshian people. We respectfully acknowledge them as the original inhabitants of Southeast Alaska. Bartlett Regional Hospital is located on the homelands of the Occoquan. We are grateful to provide services in your ancestral homeland and to be a part of this community.
Thank you, Chad. Anita, will you do a roll call?
James Cohn,
Here.
Max Mertz,
Here.
Dr. Rester,
Here.
Lisa Peterson, here. Al Geiger,
Present.
Dr. Jones is absent. Shelley Deering,
Here.
Deb Johnston, here. Kenny Solomon Gross,
Here.
and we also have Dr. Malker, Chief of Staff, and Wade Bryson.
And we have several other people. We have some people online and we have several people in the room to staff. And Ian is also here as well too, our CEO. Just wanted to let everybody know that. Can we get approval of the agenda, please? See, no discussions, agenda is approved. Public participation, Dr. Taney.
You want me to come up there?
Yes.
Okay,
Or you-
all right.
Dr. Taney, our rules are pretty much just like the assembly's rules. You have, approximately 3 minutes to speak. If you go a little bit long, we have no one else here, so
Okay,
we're not gonna do anything, and then our board can ask you direct questions about the content that you spoke about.
sure. Okay, thank you. So my name is Brent Tingey. I'm an orthodontist in private practice here in Juneau since 2011. I also maintain a practice in Ketchikan, and until recently had maintained a practice in Petersburg as well, as satellite offices. And the reason I wanted to address the board today was to bring attention to not just from myself, but from most of my dental colleagues that I deal with in the community. Our concern is with the rapid expansion of Southeast Alaska Regional Health Consortium. So they're known as SEARCH, and kind of their expansion into the private sector specifically. We're seeing, I'm kind of in a unique position because I worked as a contract dentist for SEARCH for 3 years, from 2006 to 2009. And as a contract dentist, I was not able to access any of their any care from SEARCH as an employee because I had no native blood, and that was very strictly enforced. And then about 5 years ago, we had a local dental society meeting where the clinic director of SEARCH came to our meeting, which is a meeting of all the dentists in Juneau, and said, we're going to start seeing non-native patients. We're going to open our doors to the general public, and there's really nothing you can do about it. And it was very blunt about it like that. And so from that time forward, we've just seen, rapid expansion, like I said, and especially since COVID. It seems they've received quite a bit of COVID money, and we're seeing quite a bit of growth. Some of the concerns that we're seeing, at least in the dental community, is that many of my colleagues, there's a shortage of dental hygienists in Juneau right now. And as many you might know, dental hygiene is a huge piece of a dental practice. And the reason they can't attract hygienists to their offices is because SEARCH is able to offer these signing bonuses that are extravagant that a private practitioner just can't practically, offer a dental hygienist. And so we've got several dentists in town that are without a hygienist and doing, trying to make do without them. We're seeing some of my colleagues have reported, and I've made a lot of phone calls just in the last 3 days to kind of get opinions from everyone so I could report, kind of broadly on the consensus of the dental community. We're seeing several of my colleagues have seen native patients, Native Alaskan patients who are in acute pain but can't get in to see SEARCH for 3 or 4 days because of the backup, and presumably due to they're busy and they've got a backlog of patients they need to see. So these are sort of some of the things we're seeing, the trends we're seeing in Juneau, and And it worries us, it concerns us, because if it were just a corporate dental office we were competing with, that would be one thing. But they have the backing of the federal government, and they have, bottomless pockets to draw from, and it makes it difficult for, the community to compete as far as attracting employees to run our offices and these types of things. So really, that's the gist of what I wanted to present.
Thank you, Dr. Tingey. Does any board members have any comments or questions for Dr. No.
Well, I hope this doesn't sound confrontational, because I do not mean it that way. But as you were speaking, and I was, even before you got to the point about the bottomless pockets, that was already a thought that was ricocheting around my mind. Has your group approached our congressional delegation, which is part of how they're receiving this money to compete with the private practitioners, not only in dentistry, but in other fields too?
That's a great question, and really, I'm just beginning to scratch the surface of trying to address the issue, so we haven't done anything formal. I actually have a meeting scheduled with the state attorney general for Friday of this week to talk about it with him. I don't know that it's gonna necessarily be super productive, but many of us don't know where to start.
Well, I guess I want to just conclude by thanking coming. I think we have some common cause.
Solomon Gross. Mr. Tingey, it's good to hear from you. It's nice to see you again. One of the details I learned about Search is that they are reimbursed at a higher rate in the hospital with insurance. Are you on the same ball field with them? Like, you submit insurance, you're paying the same amount of money that they would get in insurance for the services you provide? Or are you in a similar situation in the hospital where a Search dental practice receive reimbursement at a higher rate than what you would receive reimbursement? Or are you guys getting the same dollar figure?
That's a question I can't answer. I don't know what the reimbursement rate is. Search and private dental office. Sorry, I don't have an answer for you there. So I can certainly ask my colleagues to find out.
Mr. Bryson, I can't speak about dentistry, but I can speak about audiology. Knowing that if you go to the hearing aid doctor, Search, they get X amount of dollars. And I'm just throwing out a number, $600 a visit versus if you go to Northland Audiology, where they're just getting peanuts compared to that. I know that other services in the medical field, definitely Search is getting reimbursed by the government a lot higher than private practice physicians.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon Gross, and thank you, Mr. Tingey.
I just have a comment. And we have the same concerns. I had the same thing. I used to work for Search when it was more public health oriented as well, and things have changed, culture's changed. I sat over there, or the board, when Mr. Chuck Hill was the CEO, so that was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and said the same concerns are coming medically because of the variability in reimbursement rates. And so it's very challenging. And in the dental community, I had a patient from Skagway that was complaining that Search had put a dentist up there so that the visiting dentist then stopped going because there was that need for that extra dentist. Then Search decided it wasn't in their best interest, so pulled out. Now no one goes there. And that's the worry with specialty care and with, from my perspective, or with internists or anything. So we share the same concern.
So the practice that I've maintained in Petersburg, I've had for 11 years, for 13 years now, and I officially shut it down last month because Search bought a dental office in Petersburg, where there is a full-time private practice dentist who serves the community with these. And they found an office that was 1 day a week practice and bought it, and now they're expanding that. He's going to be in trouble pretty soon, and those. So, yeah, we're seeing the effects of it certainly in real time.
Next.
I do have 2 or 3 questions, but if anybody else needs to chime in.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is why.
Are you aware that Search is a nonprofit organization? They're a 501c3. So there's tax reorganization.
And are you aware that, Dr. Kingy, that they're federally funded? All their money comes from the feds. So when the dentist person from Search came to your group 5 years ago, did they tell you why? What their motivation is for trying to drive you out of business?
I asked that question specifically because I gave the example of me not being able to receive services as an employee, and then the 180-degree turnarounds of opening their doors to everyone. And he didn't have a good answer for me. I don't know if he was high enough up in the chain of command to know the reason behind the change.
So is it fair to say that you don't, I guess the question is, do you know why they're doing this? And the answer is you don't know why they're doing this. When I think about the dental community, having had young children and, they went through the whole braces things of which you put their braces on their teeth. And you, Dr. Paulson, who's longtime service here, Dr. Schultz, both Dr. Schultz is here, all the different dentists that are here yourself. Would you say that 5 years ago that Juneau had adequate dental and orthodontic services available in Juneau?
Absolutely, yeah.
So when Search came in, it was anti-competitive. Is it fair to say that when they started providing services, they weren't providing an unmet need, but they were taking services away from existing providers?
That's a fair assessment. Yeah.
So and I think that's something that is worth evaluating is why Search, which is federally funded, a nonprofit organization, is essentially competing against the private practice. And it seems to me is anti-competitive because they're taking practice away from providers that are already providing a robust service. I mean, I would say that everybody would say that Juneau dentistry is, pretty healthy or has been pretty healthy in the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
So looking down the road, I guess my other question is, if you look down the road at where you are now and where the group practice, do you see providers that are probably not going to be able to survive this?
There's potential, I think, for that to happen. It really depends. My understanding is the building that was just put in the ground on next to Safeway there is going to be the dental clinic, the new dental clinic. Which is going to be a lot bigger building than they have now, which means more capacity for more providers. If that happens, yeah, they can certainly draw enough from other dentists to put them, to make them relocate and go elsewhere. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Just one more point I want to just kind of talk about too. Dr. Tina, you took over your practice from a physician that was retiring, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how hard do you think it would be for you right now if you wanted to recruit someone to come up and take over your practice?
It'd be very difficult. It was quite difficult for him actually to find me. I mean, I came knocking on his door, but if I hadn't been there, he said himself it might have taken years to find someone. There's a couple dental practices in town that have been for sale for a few years and haven't been able to sell, their practice. So it's a challenging place to practice. I mean, Juneau's a challenging place to live. We all know that. It can be. It's not for everyone, but it can be difficult to find someone to buy a practice.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more questions for Dr. Tina? What's that? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Tina.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Is there anybody online that wants to participate? I don't see anybody online that wants to speak. With that, we're going to move on to our consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Any no objections? Consent agenda is approved as is. We're going to go to old business. We're going to go to hospital capacity and update from Kim McDonald, CEO.
Sure. Currently, we have 3 employees out with COVID, no current indications with COVID. As people might have noticed, the ships are back. So they started this week, last couple weeks with just one shift. This will be the first week they'll have multi shifts. There's an MOU that only has max of 5 a day now, and the bigger 2 shifts, they've separated, so they will come on Tuesdays to kind of help ease some congestion throughout the city. And our ER, which is appreciated. CCU had 60 patient days in March, MedSurg had 412, OB 64, tertiary 54. MHU had 262 patient days. They currently have a census of 5 with possible 3 admits coming in today. The emergency department saw 921 patients last month. RRC currently has a census of 7. Crisis has since kind of the December stars had 62 patient days with a length of stay at 4.3, and that current census is 2 as of today. We have a couple of patients, we have 1 patient waiting for long-term care, 1 for subacute care, or subacute rehab, and 1 for acute rehab. And those should be ready to be discharged by tomorrow. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll let Kim Stout give the census and update for Wildfire for the home health process.
Anybody have any questions for Kim? Thank you, Kim. Talk a little bit about the CEO search and update and Deb.
Sure, the search committee had its inaugural meeting on the 11th. We were presented with a timeline. Chad did an excellent job of putting together a timeline for us. We also we're actually ahead of schedule. We thought our first meeting was scheduled for the prior week. We thought we'd be behind a week. We ended up being ahead of a week on the timeline. We were able to prioritize and we took a look at the position description, and we were able to prioritize those characteristics and skills, characteristics and skills that we are particularly looking for in our next CEO. So we came very close to, and I just was handed the final for review of the position description and the draft posting for the position. So in the next day or so, tomorrow or the next day, we should see that posted online and start receiving applications from our candidates for the position. The goal is to complete the process August, early September. We will, my recollection is good, Chad, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we will expect that late June, early July will be when we're bringing our final candidates up for our in-person meetings and their introduction to Judah. Any
questions for Deb?
Yeah.
Could you just remind me, who's on the committee?
Sure. Shelley, myself, Nick Rosenfeld, Maria, Dr. Urata, and Robert Barr. And you, I always forget Ian. Sorry, and Ian.
Very good. Thank you.
And then, if I may,
Yes.
and so we're advertising online, and then no headhunters or any other services.
Not at this point. If we feel that we're not going to wait very long, but if our first pool, our initial pool, we don't think is broad enough, we may bring in the services, hopefully, of the previous firm that brought us our last CEO and had a 3-year guarantee that he would stay 3 years. So.
Yeah, Deb, help me understand what the interface between the committee and the board is, the handoff. What is it that the committee hands off to the board, and then what is it the board deliberates on?
we'll bring a pool of candidates to the board. Chad's staff will do the initial screening and bring us a pool of a larger pool of candidates. We will winnow it down to 3 to 5 candidates for folks to take a look at, and then we'll bring them up here for the broader for the community to take a look at. The board specifically will have the opportunity for the senior, will provide opportunities for senior leadership for the staff, for CBJ and the community. The physicians will have an opportunity for the physicians to meet with them and then the broader community.
So I'm just thinking about the last couple of processes. So will the committee bring, let's just say 3 candidates for the board to consider? And then the board is the one that makes a decision about who comes up for the final interview?
We haven't gotten that far yet. We have not discussed that particular.
You have.
No, we have not discussed that.
Because Kenny, last time, the way that this worked was that was the way it basically worked, right? The committee brought like 3 candidates, the board discussed it.
It was, you know, the first time, I think we brought like 5 to the board and we decided to bring up 3. Last time we brought up 4 to the board. We're gonna bring all 4 of them. 3 of them dropped out before they were able to come up here. So we went back to the board with the other top finalists.
Yeah.
The board decided to bring up those 3 people. So again, you know, envisioning working with Chad and Deb, the process will be the committee will make an initial assessment of these candidates. So the board can expect to see anywhere between 6 candidates, 3 to 6 candidates.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And then our deliberation on that is an executive session, is that right?
Our yes. The short answer is yes. I haven't seen the timeline that Chad and Deb have, but what I've expressed is that I really want to see us as a board have interviews or an assessment center or something like we've done in the past before, kind of spend a little bit extra time with the candidates, making sure that CBJ, our liaison gets to meet with them, our CBJ leaders get to meet with them. I want to hear what, I'm sure Deb wants to make sure that we hear what everybody says, and it's all brought into the boardroom in an executive session way that we could talk about each person candidly and individually, and then come out of executive session with a choice. Is that how you envision?
Yep.
That?
That is exactly how.
Thank you.
Lisa.
Are you guys working to try to do this expeditiously so that we don't lose
Yeah.
candidates?
So I believe that the timeline that Deb has shared with me and Chad has done is extremely ambitious. So I'm really happy with the timeline. And I really think that we're gonna have some, we have a great committee, you know, with lots of experience, lots of Bartlett experience. And then we also have Ian, who really is gonna help guide this process along with us too, with his many years of experience in this. So I think we're very lucky for that.
We've spent a fair amount of time on that particular issue
Right.
itself, because we know we lost over the last several recruitment efforts. We've lost candidates because they've been sitting around waiting to hear from us. We do not want that to happen.
Yes.
Just a comment, I would imagine Dallas Hargrave is as pleased as punch that Chad is here now.
And I gotta tell you, I'm pretty happy that.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Deb, do you have anything else?
No, that was.
So as we talked about, as we're going into new business here, we all know that we are I've engaged with the new legal firm, and I asked Mr. Warden to give us an update on them.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, we would not be here with Hall Render without the hard work of Mr. Palmer from City Law. He guided us through the city process, which I thought went very smoothly, but I was worried about it. He helped in the selection and the interview process, as well as then negotiated that, all while he's working on the school district issues. So I see how much we appreciate that effort. Having said that, we did have a initial meeting with them, and then we also talked with Deb, Max, and Kenny regarding the priorities. So this is what we've asked them to do. I want you to focus on 4 major priorities. And the first one is, what's our status as a critical access hospital? Does this make sense? In terms of better reimbursement, can we do that? And there's some nuances that was farmed out to our CFO to lead that process. And he's working with the Hall Render lawyer by the name of David Snow, who I've known was their key reimbursement person. They didn't give us their second string. They gave us their top group. So that's going along. I think it's looking positive, but there's nuances, legal nuances, like the impact on the 340B program. Thank you. As well as if we decide to do this, and of course that's a decision the board would have to ratify. Again, we would have to go through relicensing, all those sorts of things that stop cash, but it looks positive from a legal standpoint. It looks pretty positive from a financial standpoint. So we will be bringing that to the board in the future when we get everything packaged together. So that's goal number 1. Number 2 priority that we wanted them to do is look at the laws around our competitive landscape within the city. And that includes both federal, state laws. So that includes certificate of need, it includes antitrust, it includes what are the rules that they have to follow, our competitors have to follow for fair market value. We have to pay fair market value, but we're not quite sure that they do, as well as pricing. And the whole issue that was brought up to us in public comment is the same issues that we were dealing with too. So that's a major focus. I'm leading that one up with Alyssa James out of their office. I did not know her, but when Rob and I talked with her a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks, she seemed really focused on the ability to get us that information. Our strategy here is provide the board with the information, provide the city with the information. What we do with that really is up to us to determine if we want to move forward on any area specifically that we could. The third major strategy is bylaws. This is something that Alex and excuse me, Dr. Walker and Dr. Rosenfeld have been working on and are ready to present to the medical staff. We have yet to complete our assessment. We don't think there's many issues to do, but we had them look at maybe 4 issues. Number 1, APPs. What's our view on APPs? The other one is the board authorities as it goes through the bylaws. Number 3 is the whole area of hospital-based physicians. Finally, I wanted them to look at how do we have employees of our largest competitor in key committees that determine policy in key areas, for example, in surgery. How do we resolve that conflict of interest? Because I do believe there's just significant conflict of interest. So those are the 4 areas. I asked them to have a light touch. Do not go through like your English teacher in 12th grade that's going to put a red pen on everything and want you to complete rewrite, because that'll drive It'll drive me crazy as well as the other two doctors over mentioned. But just focus on those 4 areas unless there's some glaring area. So that's priority number 3. Priority number 4 is a whole lot of other little issues around physician comp, fair market value. I know we've had some issues with fair market value leases, employment of physicians, things of that nature. How do you pay employee physicians? And so that's a whole bucket that has probably 4 or 5 different small little projects in there. And that has been farmed out to the individuals that are actually looking at these areas. Here's one. Not a question, but a lawsuit also. But those are the 4 basic areas they're working. I think the one that's probably most fully formed and close would be the critical access hospital. The bylaws will take some time because if you've ever read bylaws, they're extensive and large. And they have to look at the old ones, the new ones. That takes some time. And then also the research on the competitive landscape will take some time. Because you're long. It was lucky that some of that work had already been done by the city law office, and so that work was also turned over to them. And then the other ones are just gonna, in some of the employment of physicians, that's something that is more urgent, so we'll get that. So those are the 4 areas. Any questions? Any questions for you? I would just add, if there's no questions, that the way we work is we're working through lawyers are licensed in the state of Alaska, but they may not be experts in their area, but they will farm out that to the expert. That's worked very quickly. I've been really impressed at how they've moved the work around. And then when it comes back through that individual by the licensed lawyer to make sure that there's nothing that they would change because of the Alaska law. So I think it's working quite well. I don't know whether or not Mr. Palmer would want to comment on that. I guess that's not my call, is it?
If he wants to comment now, or he can talk when it's his.
Okay.
I'm coming on board. I don't know if I have video yet, but I'm here. Thank you, Bartlett staff and the board. So yeah, I think Hall Render transition has been going fairly well, and I'm super appreciative of staff as we go through the transition, trying to figure out who the right point of contact is. And I think we're succeeding. I think with another month or so, it should be fairly smooth. And as Mr. Warden said, I think Hall Renders got us queued up with the right people, and we're in the right spot. So I think, and like I said, in a month, we'll probably have a better idea as to how things are working.
Palmer, Max.
Ian, I'm very pleased that we're moving forward on these various areas. It's great, and it's good to hear that they've got the depth to have different teams.
Right.
On the 4th area, that was kind of the catch-all of the other stuff. Are those on the back burner right now, waiting to be addressed? They've got other team. I guess my question is, are there other attorneys that are working on those?
There are. Our firm main people, Mary Kay Lifford is our key contact, and she is the one that kind of moves it out. David Snow is our main individual on critical access, and I've worked with him. Jennifer Skills is the the bylaws and other things. Brian Bettner, I've worked with her, is doing the medical staff bylaws. Alyssa James is doing, who I've never doing the critical compound. And then there's the small issues are just being, sent out to individuals that I don't know, but they seem to be competent working with this staff. So I've been very impressed by how responsive they've been, especially with the biggest.
Yeah, right. And I've got one other question too, that you've got the tax issues, potential tax issues on the comps.
Any other questions? Thank you. Just get an update from monthly on this, I believe. We'll just keep it. All right, we'll move on to med staff report. I know Alex got some here.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. It was largely business as usual at the medical staff meeting. Ms. McDowell and Joe Warner were there to help provide some information since Mr. Warner was out of town. In particular, a lot of time was spent explaining to the medical staff some of the financial situations that these groups talked about. And I thought Joe and Ms. McDowell did a very nice job kind of laying them out in a way that was quite understandable to the doctors who don't, live in this world full time. And I think the doctors were very appreciative. Doctors had a lot of questions, some comments, and I just kind of editorially, I was very pleased with the way that Ms. McDowell and Joe were able to, kind of thoughtfully, respectfully get at these issues. And I think that the medical staff felt that the discussion was very transparent. So that was great. The minutes of the meeting are in, I think, your executive packet. And I suppose if there were specific questions, we can discuss it later. I included a memo that was really just informational. There was no big agenda with this. As the board realizes, the medical staff interacts with the administration all the time. And, I think 95% of the time, we're very, very comfortable with the way everything's going. We were very comfortable with this. There was a particular issue that we were comfortable with, but we simply wanted to loop in the board. There are a few issues that since we answer in the abstract to the board, and since the board in the abstract charges us with kind of quality and professionalism issues, we just want the board to occasionally be aware that if things are operating in a manner which might not, which they wouldn't exactly realize, that we simply want them to realize that we've talked to the administration about it, we're comfortable with it, but the board just gets looped in on some ways that we approach certain issues.
Anybody had a chance to read? Does anybody have any questions?
And otherwise, I think I'll talk about the rest of our agenda in executive session with the credentialing committee.
Sounds great. Great. Thank you very much. I'm gonna go right on to committee meetings and minutes. And we'll start with this.
As usual, the minutes accurately reflect what we discussed. It was a relatively short meeting. A couple of things to draw to your attention. We are continuing to move forward with the EE project. We as a board have tasked the staff and engineering to get us to 65% documents. We are, I believe, at 35% right now, but we're reaching a point that in order to get to 65% documents, we will need, if we're going to continue with the CMAR, construction manager at risk contracting, we need to start looping them in. So we as a planning committee are bringing forward to this group. We have an action item related to this. Approve that the project move forward and allow the staff to begin that CMAR selection process. We've already approved in the last go around, we have approved that type of contracting and the city has as well. The city procurement folks have approved that as well. It's just time to get rolling again. So there is a motion before you. I believe. There's no action item? Okay. Are we good to, do we need an action item for this?
Well, there is
Is it public?
Yeah, so-
Can't do it.
We're not gonna have an action like this, but if you read through the minutes, they're definitely. We want to move the planning committee that definitely recommended that we do something like this. So the planning committee, I'm sure, will be bringing an action item to the board meeting next time. I just want to know, is this going to hold anything up if we postpone it for 1 month?
Mr. President, the award of a CMAR project would not happen until after the board would have plenty of time to make this decision. We're not anticipating that a construction contract, a CMAR contract could be awarded still for a couple of months. So if the board needs to take specific action to approve this, well, what we wanted to convey to the planning committee was without additional direction, we may be limited in our ability, or we may see a day for day delay if we don't at least start the solicitation process. That's the point. Let's start the solicitation process. We won't be able to award that contract until I don't have the timeline directly in front of me, but probably in the August timeframe, August to September timeframe. And at that point, we would need to make another determination about spending funds to award that contract as well. So we'll continue to provide updates through the planning.
I just want to make sure that I'm completely understanding this. So the planning committee has given you guys direction to start the process. And if the planning committee brings this action item to the board in say May or June board meeting, this is not going to cause any delay in awarding a contract to anybody. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You okay with that?
No, I understand.
I'm sorry, does anybody have any questions about this at all? Okay. Thank you, Doug. Go ahead.
The only other thing that I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but from year to year, we typically include in our budget an additional $3 million for capital improvement projects. We, over the last couple of years, have not spent all of that, and we accumulated a surplus. So this year we did not ask for that $3 million in capital in CIP. Which is a departure from what we've done in the past. We've talked about it, about requesting it anyway, but we have administration with discussion with us has chosen not to include it.
Again, it's pretty accurately reflected in the minutes too,
Yeah.
the amount of money and stuff too, so. Thank you, planning committee, appreciate it. No questions, we'll move on to finance committee next.
Thanks, Kenny. The April 12th minutes are in the packet and they're up on the screen here right now. There are really two primary areas that we covered. The first is number 6 there, which is the subject of the consent agenda that's in tonight's packet. And I won't go back through that other than the fact that Joe did present those results for February. The other was the next page of 7 was Joe's presentation of the PowerPoint that was made to the assembly the prior Saturday that broke out our budget by core and non-core areas. I didn't see that in our packet tonight, but I think it's certainly available in the finance committee packet. And it's an important breakout because it shows the huge losses that we're incurring, number one, but at the expense of these non-core services that we're operating now that we weren't several years ago. And the important takeaway, which is in the minutes, is that Joe with other senior team members and Ian are working on evaluating what the potential best case scenario is for each of those non-core areas, what set of assumptions it would take to get to those best case scenarios, and then report that the results of that work to us, hopefully in the May meeting. There's some good work there, and, you know, ultimately, it'll probably lead to a community discussion around, you know, what should the hospital in Juneau, Alaska be providing for the community? And so that'll be the subject of the May meeting, and we'll have more information then. So.
Any questions for finance committee? So I just want to make a comment. Thank Joe and Max, Deb, and Ethan for working so hard on this budget process. Our hospital budget is extremely complicated, and you know, the med staff, Dr. Malter kind of pointed it out that it was really great that Joe and Kim came to med staff and just kind of explained it to them and worked with them. So it was really important for me this cycle that Ian and Joe, Deb, and myself was able to sit down with all the board members individually and be able to just talk about the budget process, see where we're at, and really make sure that everybody completely understands it. And then also to our assembly members, you know, our liaison gave us a lot of time coming in and meeting with us and talking with us. And so did a lot of the other assembly members. So when they did present the budget on April 6th, you know, a huge budget takes a long time to talk about, but they did a lot of background work, Joe and Ian, on talking to everybody and making sure that when they got there and they had their 90 minutes to talk, that at least that it was able to be understood by everybody and know that our community is going to have to work together to make sure that we're able to provide what services that our community wants. And I really appreciate that from you guys for pointing that out and helping us and explaining what Bartlett has, the history, where we came from, and how we got to where we are right now. So thank you guys very much. It will stop. Anybody else? Dr. Ball?
I'm not as involved in this obviously as folks, but was there surprise that the city assembly accepted, you know, the status quo budget? Was there expectation that they were going to give kind of preliminary, more clear-cut direction, or did it go as you expected?
So I wasn't there, but what I can say is that the assembly accepted our budget, but they want parameters. Okay, they want us to, and our liaison, Mr. Price, is here too. So if I'm not saying this correctly, please step in. They want us to say, okay, this is where we're at. They don't want us to do anything draconian or anything like that. What they want us to do is evaluate, like Mr. Warden's talked, and like Mr. Warden written in his last 3 months of board notes to the board on what we're doing and where we're at as an institution, as a hospital, and as a community, and what we're providing for the community. And you know, the assembly has a lot of faith in this board. They've showed it to us over and over again. And I think the assembly really wants this board to work diligently hard to listen to what the community has to say, the med staff have to say, staff have to say. So when the budget gets finally approved in June, that if there's questions, that we can provide them questions or answers, or exactly what direction we want to go. And Max made a really great point here, saying that you know, our budget, our hospital, this is our community's hospital. So it's so important that we get input from the community, and there's going to be a point where the community is going to have to come in and say what we want, what services do we want from our hospital, what do we want Bartlett to provide. And I really believe that with Joe and Ian's leadership, they're going to get us to this point where we're going to be able to provide all the answers that are necessary in a very open manner.
Mr. Chimmel, the thing that I'm worried about, there's two possible ways to make a really serious mistake here. One is to be impulsive and react and say, well, we've got this problem in the budget, so we're just gonna start cutting programs and not allow enough time for there to be developed alternate ways of funding. That's one serious mistake. The other serious mistake we could have is to just keep talking and have things drag on until we're out of money and we're out of options. Well, that's a serious mistake for a lot of reasons. What is, one thing I've been listening for and not hearing is some kind of timeline. How will the board members know we're on schedule? And we're not being too impulsive and we're not just dithering.
So great questions. And I'm going to actually turn this over to Joe and Ian to answer that. They probably have a better pulse of it. So we'll go to Joe.
So our goal is to come up with decision point documents that kind of outline all the programs, all the parameters, try to answer any questions we think might be relevant, come up with best case scenarios. So our goal is to have those finished here about the 1st of May, so we can bring them to finance committee for review, get them to have a first little hearing, and then hopefully bring them to the board meeting at the end of May. And then start making decisions at that point, or solicit more comment from the public, I guess. So at your discretion at that point. Does that answer your question?
No, it doesn't. I imagine that the board's gonna have to start making decisions in a stepwise manner. We're not gonna just decide keep everything, get rid of everything all at once. So I'm not sure, I'm listening for when I can expect us to really take a hard vote. Something that's gonna be.
I think it was said here, they're going to come up with some decision documents by the end of this month. And then it's going to be presented to the finance committee. The finance committee then will look at what is said, bring it to the board, then at the May board meeting, take public comment if need be. Our timeline, Cal, is to make sure that we have our ducks in a row, to make sure that the assembly, when they finish out their final budget in June, is completed. And I know you wanted us to drill down here to the exact dates on how we're going to do it, but this is more of a fluid thing here to make sure that we make the right decisions and what's right for our community and get as much input as possible. Max, and then I'm sorry, Mr. Bryson, what do you think?
Thanks for your indulgence with me. I think indulgence in my question.
Just to add, I think it's going to be some of these things will be a broad discussion in the community. I mean, you think about, I spent some time today with Joe and we were looking at kind of the approach and how he had handled one of them, and which happened to be rainforest recovery, which is, one of these areas that we've had around for a long time as a community. And it was actually a CBJ function, and CBJ was losing about $1 million a year at rainforest recovery and turned it over to Bartlett in 2000 and said, here, you do it now. And so that service has been there for a long time, and it's continuing to cost significant amount of money to the hospital to provide that, for which we're not getting any CBJ support. And so it boils down to a question that probably will get posed, which is, we have this service, it has a best case loss of X, whatever that number that Joe determines it is, and Ian and the other senior managers. And so if, as a community, the question that they'll be posing to first the board, and I think probably ultimately we'll be posing to the assembly, is do we want to find alternate funding for this? Is this something that's important for the community to provide? Are there drastic changes or not so drastic changes that we can make to significantly reduce that loss? And so I think what I was hearing from you on your timeline is, how do we know that we're on track and trying to turn this thing around? I don't think we'll really know that until we kind of pose the question to which I think is going to be the assembly of, is this something that's important for you guys, given the loss and the number of patients served, for us to continue or not? So what I see them giving to us in May is the as Kenny pointed out, are the tools for us to make that evaluation and start that discussion.
Thank you, Max. Mr. Brace.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon Gross. So the first note I made as you guys were starting this discussion is we've got to go through the budget season. We will not have Bartlett's budgetary woes solved by the end of this budget season. I like that you guys are working on decision documents. And so that means it's going to have to go through a committee of the whole, because we're going to have significantly more free flow discussion in committee of the whole, where we can actually like have the practical discussion of what do we want to fund as a community, what do we not. And so I would imagine that that would be a post-budget conversation. However, going back to the way that this board and the executive committee of this board prepped the assembly for the big long Saturday that we had. And then the way that Mr. Warden has been able to answer all the questions, our assembly has the most confidence in the Bartlett board and in the CEO that they've had in a long time. We felt like you guys had control of the situation, you had awareness of the situation, and are taking steps moving in the right direction. So we'll be looking for that stuff, Mr. Geiger. We're going to want to see, okay, give us real numbers. These decision documents I think are going to be super helpful. But the Bartlett is only like one of our problems that we're in the middle of solving right now. We'll get to it. Yeah.
I don't really know how to say this, so forgive me if I say it wrong. I think we also have to be very cognizant of the communication and how we get our messaging out. As we all know, issues with the school district, community's been faced with major decisions and closures and things like that that have upset a lot of people. And I mean, I've just heard some messaging out in the community that the perception is that, you know, the hospital is trying to dump programs and basically leave our community in a horrible state. And I absolutely agree with what you guys are saying, that, you know, some of these programs are costing the hospital a great deal of money when actually costs should be shared. And so, so that's my only real concern, is that, you know, we don't inflame and contribute to any confusion that anybody might have out there about what we're doing and why we're doing.
Thanks. The purpose of having a process called the decision documents, it's not that a decision is going to be on that document, but that document is being developed is to provide everybody with a common understanding of what each of these entities is, the alternatives in the communities, the funding levels, even if they want to fund it with property tax, what the mill rate would be. So once we have those documents, they have to be kind of tested for accuracy, tested for perception, because as you know, I'm new to the community. I didn't know all the history. And I know that I've gotten some historical data that I found very, very useful. And then, as I said in the budget hearings, it's up to the community through their elected officials to help us form the decisions on those entities. We're not going to be doing it. You separate those entities out from the hospital. Those entities are community benefit type entities, and the assembly and the city and others have to decide what they want us to do. But I wanted everyone to start basically being on the same page. So that's the purpose of those documents. What that's trying to do, Hal, is to have not only accurate information, that accuracy is tested by everybody's knowledge, but then it provides us with a foundation for making good decisions as quickly as we can sort out what the community needs are. On the hospital side, I think we can move a little bit faster because as our vice president opened with opening remarks at the budget, is that the board understands its responsibilities, commitment to improving the hospital. And so we'll be moving in two spheres. One is, how do we improve the hospital? And then how do we bring in the full discussion of what to do with these other entities that are very problematic, but also very important to people.
Thank you. Anybody else? So, actually, everything else from planning, or, I think this is a good time just to take a quick, have a 10-minute break. So it's 6:30, we'll come back at 6:40.
I think.
All right, everybody. We're gonna go right now to Mr. Warden, the CEO and administration report.
All right, well, thank you so much. Excuse me. Unlike my previous letters, this one is jam-packed with information. And I think the first part of it is really, how are we gonna make decisions? I already mentioned it, so I'll belabor it. Is that we really have those that are public health and ancillary, and those that are hospital. We're moving rapidly improving the hospital, but we have a different process, decision point documents to make sure that the community weighs in and the assembly weighs in to these decisions. So I did want to thank two people. Deb Johnson did a terrific job as the vice president of acknowledging the board's responsibility and commitment to overseeing the improvement process. And Joe did a wonderful job in terms of speaking to the budget. It's not easy to explain numbers to half the world that don't live by numbers. And so the articulation of numbers is really kind of an important thing. I think it was held with our time. I'd also like to point out that we have a lot of new work going on in information systems. And I just wanted to brag on Chris Letterman over there in your document. We've been setting up one of the most important disciplines of hospitals. How do you put systems in? How do you manage systems in? And if you don't do it well, you waste a lot of clinical time. You can have a lot of errors, and you can have a lot of duplication of computer systems. So if you want to read something that I think is really important for the future, I spent a little bit of time on the information system aspect. What we're setting up and have set up, and I talked about it before, is a governance oversight committee. What that means is everything has to flow through. And the way to think about IT is anything that connects to the network, Chris has to be involved. Why? Because if he's not, we can have incompatibility, cybersecurity issues. We can have systems that they didn't even know that we have to set up. We bought, but we don't know that we set up. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we funnel the large amount of IT requests that come through. And the way you have to think about IT is unlimited demand, limited resources. And so we have to be very careful to be able to look at those resources. Having said that, my discussions with the medical staff, they are interested in making sure that they have physician input in these things. And of course, we have one of the committees that I just point out is the Advisory Council. That council will be led by the chair of that council will be Dr. Rosenfeld, who seems to have an interest in it. And it'll be about standardization of care, making sure that we have clinical priorities set. Just because we think something was designed doesn't mean it works well for the people who actually have to use it. So that feedback and that committee is really, really important. So I just, if you have the time, make sure that you take a look at that. We also have a patient safety committee that was instituted. The Good Catch program, sorry about that. And I think this is again another great practice, so I'll call your attention to that. I was, one of the things that we have is we have a no season and a go season. And that means that we have a lot of work that we have to do related to ensuring that we're working well with the cruise line industry. And of course, we've taken steps to get a better liaison, better understanding. I know the chief operating officer there, Kim, as well as the foundation, has helped us get that together. They have a lot of needs. We have a lot of needs to say, when you come in town, we have a lot of additional costs. So we're trying to figure out some way to make their needs full without eating that cost. Another important aspect, I did, is we have a lot of travelers in, they're very expensive. And one of the initiatives that started before my time is how do we grow our own? That's going to be very important for this community. See under this part of the letter, we have LPN coming in. 6 of those students have already signed up for 24 months. They're going to be placed in Wildflower Court. Keep in mind, Wildflower Court is one of the highest areas of travelers. And so we're very happy about that. We have a registered nurse associates program. We have a nurse assistant program, and we're looking forward to doing that. And we're also focusing on the future. The kids coming out of high school that are in high school who want to understand what it is about the healthcare program that they might be interested in. We have also a program to help them. So I feel, a lot of these programs are doing a great job of moving us forward in terms of solving that one issue. And as you know, direct labor is a big issue for us that we need to solve. And then finally, we have HR, not to leave them out, Chad. We're focusing on employee satisfaction. We already mentioned contract staff. You look at the number of A3s, a lot of departments are trying to focus on reducing. We need to do better training of our supervisory staff. We tend to bring leaders in from the clinical side, don't train them for the how much fun they're going to have on the management side. Scheduling, dealing with payroll, dealing with budgets, dealing with the things that they have to do with. We're focusing on adding some new technology in. So I feel that our executive team through this letter is really getting some momentum up. I'll stop here and see if there's any questions you might have about any of the parts of the letter that I pointed out, or any things that I didn't.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Any questions for Ian?
I did have a question about staffing. I'm sorry about your, if you scroll back up, Anita, to where the LPN, the 6 staff, that one right there. So where are we in terms of Kim? It's Kim? Yeah, either Kim, I guess, on the Wildfire Court for getting us to a point where we can have, utilizing all the beds over at Wildfire Court. Does that move the needle for us?
The CNA program will move the needle the most for us. So I know that according to Jennifer Twio, who manages these programs, they're going to be providing 2 classes on top of each other this summer. And so hopefully by the end of this summer, we'll be able to eliminate all of our travelers and have enough CNAs to even open up all the rest of our beds.
Is that
We should.
Through the chair, we're interviewing, we're having a class of 14 CNAs that will be hopefully testing in August. And all of them that we're interviewing, we are explaining to them that they will be going to Wildflower Court as their primary location when they graduate.
Thank you. That's excellent. And I guess this is a follow on, Joe, not to put you on the spot, but back when Wildfire Court was on its own, they used to say, we had 61 beds or whatever, and we break even at about 58. And so is that still true? I mean, will we be breaking even, putting our head above water when we get to, closer to full occupancy?
Yeah, closer to the mid 54 is what we figured.
54,
That's kind of the sweet spot there and up.
great.
And Max, you may be interested, I'm asking people to modulate how many patients we take in there until we get our staffing.
Yeah.
It's not only a quality issue, but we don't want to be adding to our system if we can avoid it. Sometimes you can't, but it's a case by case basis.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you, everybody.
Do you have anything else you want to?
No, unless there's any more questions, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to Kim, Administrator for Home Health Hospice and Mount Court.
Thank you. So that kind of leads into the census. Wildflower Court, our census today is 46. We do have capacity to do some more admissions right now. So I do plan on trying to get some admissions into the building. Our census at home health is actually 20. Hospice is at 9. We have an admit tomorrow, so we'll be at 10 on hospice. Our hospice average length of stay since December the 11th, which is the day that we actually became fully licensed, is 28.4 days per. That's the average length of stay. And our average daily census since then has been 8.5. So we're actively trying to grow our program right now. You can read my report, and if there's any questions on it, I'm more than happy to address them. I will say I have been through 3 more surveys since the last board meeting. And that seems to be a comment. I think we're through with them. We actually had a revisit with Wildflower Court, at which time all of the findings from the licensure, the health survey were completely cleared. And we were actually we were complimented heavily and on how organized we were and what a great revisit it was. We also had a federal, I will say probably a validation type survey come in the door, and she left a day early stating that she had 0 findings. We looked great. She was out the door.
Great.
And then home health had their licensure survey revisit on April 18th, just last week. And as you know, I spoke previously, we have 3 findings on that, and they were all cleared quickly. And again, we were complimented by the surveyor on providing excellent corrective action plans. So now we just sit and wait on the home health side as well for all of our CCN numbers and Medicaid numbers and things such as that. I will state that also that on Monday, just this week, yesterday, CMS released new minimum staffing standards for long-term care. The rule will now require nursing homes to deliver 3.48 hours of daily direct care per resident. We're within that. 2.45 hours of that care must come from a certified nurse aide, and with at least 0.55 hours from a registered nurse. And we do have the registered nurse coverage. And then 0.48 hours just needs to comply with the total nurse staffing standard. The other interesting thing about this new staffing mandate, CMS is also going to be updating and strengthening the facility assessment, which is an annual assessment that we're required to do in long-term care to help determine whether a facility staffing needs to be set above the minimum based on resident acuity and individual care needs. So this is going to be interesting as to how the facility assessment standard is going to build on what those staffing requirements will be. And I'm open to any questions you may have. Yes, it does require an RN 24/7 on site. On site, yes. Yes.
So that last point that you made about the annual assessment, is there a specific criteria with regard to acuities? Is there like a matrix or a guideline, or is this?
We're gonna be waiting to see what that says. That is something that CMS is working on. It said the facility assessment will become a standalone regulation. And so I'm gonna sit and wait on that a little bit.
More to come.
More to come.
So, Joe, this might be a question for you. So if they require us to have more staff, would they increase the reimbursement?
Well, Medicare, probably not. Medicaid, as we rebase, there should be more reimbursement because the cost will be there.
But I mean, every year, if they say that we have higher acuity, we need to back our staffing levels up, would they?
I know they did a price increase proposal and I think it was 3.5%. I would anticipate that there'd be increased reimbursement based on the staffing change. Just from what they've done historically.
Next.
But no, I think Kim had a comment.
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna clarify, partly through the chair, that we're considered that there's a 3 or a 5 year compliance timeframe, and we're considered urban, so we have 3 years to comply, so it's not. We have some time to think about how to move forward, and I think with bringing LPNs, even though there's an RN that's required to be on site 24/7, I think that's something where we can really grow more LPNs to have in that to provide some staffing if they change that.
And reduce costs, because we historically Wildflower Court, from my observation, has been heavily RN. Because Juneau was heavily RN, and with this flip, we will be able to reduce costs by using LPNs. With the one RN 24/7 in there.
I do have a question, Kim. At some earlier meeting, you mentioned that in Juneau is a little bit out of sync with what you normally see in a hospice community where they, doctors might enroll or families might put somebody into hospice at a much earlier stage than here. It's very late stage, and that we would be well served if we could bring patients into hospice earlier, both from the family standpoint and certainly from, is that accurate? I guess number one, is my memory accurate? Number two, is there any work that we're doing along those lines to try to kind of re-educate or change that paradigm?
It's a national problem with people entering hospice at the very end of their life versus a doctor signing a statement stating that they anticipate 6 months or less to live. Jim probably knows more about the history of the types of admissions to hospice than what I do, but at this point, I'm pretty pleased with the average length of stay of 28.4 days versus, less than a week. Our first few admits that we took into our program, they were 5 days or less. We were seeing that, but it seems like as we are getting more operationalized and we're starting to get those referrals on a much earlier and a much quicker basis. Dr. Peterson, who's our medical director, and Heather have been very engaged and active, and they've been to a medical staff committee meeting to educate them. They've been going to some of the local clubs. I don't know what you have here, Lions Club, something that comes to my mind, or Masons or things such as that. And they do attend as many community projects as what they can to try to educate, and they'll continue to do that.
Thank you, Kim. Any other questions for Kim? Thank you very much. And then Mr. Palmer, do you have anything for us today? Outside of legal or outside of executive session?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do not right now, but I will have something for you later tonight.
Good to see you.
Likewise.
Maria, thank you so much for sitting through our meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a couple of updates to the report that was provided, and I also have two additional items materialized after printing on this report. So updates is the application period for the Element Scholarship has been extended to May 31st. And this scholarship is also another tool into the Grow Your Own program. We've had a very good success in having students who, after they graduate from their schools where they're attending in the scholarship program, to return to Juneau. We have quite a few here at Bartlett and in the community. So this is another tool to use in that. You're on, and then Kim McDowell, she is on our scholarship committee, and we'll be getting to work within a week or so when the packages are prepared and come out. We expect at least 20 applicants, if not to the program. So we've expanded also who can apply. Typically had been RNs, medical students. Now we accept radiology technicians. We accept any health sciences program that is professional. So we're really looking forward to the closing of the application period and see what we have. And we have about $30,000 for the scholarships this year. See how many were awarded. Next update is on the Give from the Heart payroll contribution campaign. Happy to report that the drive here in April, we produced 4 more enrollees, so that's awesome. And thank you, Mr. Bryson, for your help with some of the parts for this program. We appreciate it. And I think we'll be starting another drive around Hospital Week with some very special retro items that we're trying to bring back. So more to come on that. The update on the Navy Band performance at Wildflower Court, it will be May 5th at 2 p.m. And this is the Pacific Band Northwest, and they do New Orleans style music. So they're exciting. And I received the marketing materials today, so I'm going to work with Neil, the activities coordinator at Wildflower, to have invitations out to the family, staff, and everybody's certainly welcome. That's May 5th.
Your husband had.
Maybe. The band is coming from Maritime Festival, so I hear him talking and mentioning, and then I go, how about a performance? So we're very, very thankful for that. It was a really nice performance last year. The residents really enjoyed it. So looking forward to something quite as nice this year as well. And let's see, the new items. Kim McDowell and I have had initial meetings with Alex Pierce, the CPJ tourism manager. We are talking about mitigating some of the logistical challenges and congestion at Bartlett through the impacts of tourism, and she's very receptive to that. We will be having follow-on meetings next week. And also we have talked about historically the Bartlett receiving and also looking at the possibility for some unreimbursed costs such as case management and the hospital list. So the conversations are good. We feel productive about the CBJ is very inclined to help out with the congestion specifically at the emergency department. Next week, we might be talking to cruise line agencies and look for some solutions to that congestion. We're excited about that. And the next point that I'd like to make is that as a result of that presentation, at the budget presentation of CBJ, there is already some community concerns and what can we do to help. To that end, the Juneau Community Foundation contacted Foundation for Life Care and the Bartlett Foundation, and we had a meeting last Friday. Several people in this room were in attendance to talk about what can help. So to that, we're starting a drive, and this is all very preliminary. There's a lot of things to iron out, but as soon as we can go out with this publicly, we have about $100,000 available, and with a match of another 150, and that is to try to reduce that deficit in hospice for next year. With the hope of giving the program enough time, we haven't had it for this long, to stabilize and do well. So there is a commitment from those two organizations to help out. We're working on that. Be more to come, I'm sure. That's all I have, and if there's any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
That's great work. Good for you.
Doing what we can.
Thank you. Every month. Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon Gross. So yes, I would like to thank, Mr. Ucatel, if you could extend that appreciation. Mr. Ucatel helped create the, chapter of the Naval League here in Juneau, which was, like a gesture to the Coast Guard. And we've recently received a notification that the Coast Guard icebreaker has been funded and is still on track to come to Juneau. The reason why I share that with you is because it is the only piece of news that I've heard in the last few years that brings younger families into the community, and everybody knows why we need to do that. Most pressing issue in the city for Bartlett is it does not look like the assembly is going to continue with a campground or a designated unsheltered encampment area. Campground was a bad nomenclature there because it's not like the Mendenhall Campground or Aquarek Campground. We needed a new name for it. So that puts us into dispersed camping, which then makes it a little bit harder for first responders and police, because instead of having just one parking lot or one area that they go to, they're now going to be dispersed throughout the community. We're already running into issues, but that is something that both the CBJ leadership and the Glory Hall and appropriate agencies are having a discussion right now to see what we can do. The reason why I mention that is because not having that concentrated area that had the direct oversight, now they're going to be dispersed in the community, kind of hidden. And so I wanted you guys to be prepped. I don't know what impact that would have for the ER or the ED room, but it seems like that would be where that impact would hit. If you had not heard, Greg Weldon, Mayor Beth Weldon's husband, passed away on Sunday late morning. We don't know the ramifications of that yet. We haven't had a meeting as an assembly. The request was to please give the mayor time and space for her family to absorb this. And I'm sure that at some point it'll be known that, hey, you can reach back out to Mayor Weldon. And so if you could honor that for, I've wanted to call her and reach out to her, but that was the one request that they had. And when I have more information, I'll share it with the group. Couldn't even imagine. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, that's all I have for you tonight, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. So go right to my report. Again, to, on behalf of myself and the board, we want to express our sincere condolences to Mayor Weldon and her family, their sons on the passing of Greg. And you know, personally, it's very sad for everybody in the community. So we're all have Beth. I had a different month. I wasn't here all month. Deb did a lot of filling in for me, so I'm going to turn this over to Deb for a few minutes to do the president's report. Turn it back over to me.
The first half of this month was very busy for me. Filling in for Kenny, the man puts in a lot of hours for sure. I just wanted to thank senior leadership for allowing me to participate in all the activities. I sat in on almost all of the budget presentations, to the medical staff, to board members, to most of the assembly members. The presentation was very well received from my perspective. I felt that the people, the individuals that we spoke to really got what we were trying to say and were appreciative of the level of detail and the and how the presentation was so clearly presented. For those of you who were online or were in the room, there were a couple folks in the room. I would say that this budget presentation was the smoothest that I've experienced since I've been on the board. And I think it was my 5th budget presentation that I've been through. So I'm so appreciative of Ian and Joe for putting this together and for scheduling everybody and for allowing me to step in for Kenny. It was great. It was really worthwhile for me. Also, I was Mr. Warden talked about the Information Systems Technology Steering Committee. I was allowed to sit in on that inaugural meeting, and I'm so excited to see what the work that they are doing. We had one presentation, one decision. 2 presentations, 1 decision to be made, and the presentation was well done. I'm very excited as we move forward to have some, that the hospital will have some structure to how we make technology decisions going forward, and to make sure that we're purchasing the right things and that everything will talk together. So the physicians will be happier. I think the staff will be happier with the outcome. It's an operational committee, so the board will not continue to attend, but it gave me an opportunity to be able to describe the process if asked. The other thing, we also had, as I said, we had our inaugural search committee, so a lot happened in this last couple of weeks. It's kind of nice to have a breather week. Thank you. Welcome back, Kenny. I really appreciated being able to do this. I also wanted to thank Joe and Ian and Cliff Hoban for allowing us to get a sneak preview of how the decision point documents are going to be crafted. We'll see them as a full board, but I got a sneak preview of the draft process and what those might look like. So I think you should be looking forward to seeing those and the level of detail that will help us in our decision making. I'm going to turn it back over to Kenny because he's been back for a while.
But I just add one.
Yes.
Our thanks also go out to Erin, who worked with Joe in terms of her documents behind the scenes, make them look very professional. So we appreciate her. A lot of people go into developing the budget. We appreciate all of them. Joe and I just got to explain.
Awesome. Thank you, Deb. Thank you for stepping in and doing a great job everywhere you did. And Erin too, thank you. I know I went to your office as soon as I came back and asked you some questions about communications, making sure that we get it out there. So, she actually wrote a memo to the board as far as communication. So if anybody wants to trust someone that knows what we should say, Erin's the person. So thank you. So now we come to a moment that's kind of bittersweet and sad and exciting. So everybody knows Lady Castlering's been with us here at Bartlett for 29 years. And she wrote us a great letter kind of talking about her history with the city, and then moving over here to Bartlett and finding her passion in credentialing and working with the next stuff. So earlier today, this was sent over by our deputy mayor for you, Deb, and I'd like to read it to you. And I'm not great at reading stuff out loud, but I'm really going to attempt to this. So, dear Ms. Castleroy, it's with a combination of sadness, pride, and gratitude that I write this letter congratulating you on your retirement from Bartlett Regional Hospital. The sadness comes because of how much you will be missed by your colleagues at BRH and the city and borough of Juneau. But after 29 years with BRH and an additional 6 years with CBJ prior to your Bartlett service, you are certainly due for a break. I am so proud of your accomplishments while serving the community of Juneau for these 35 years. From your beginnings at CBJ Mental Health Center to your work at Bartlett Mental Health Unit and your many years with the Medical Staff Service Department. Your achievements have been many and your service is greatly appreciated by the entire community. I am grateful for your many years of service at BRH and CBJ. You have attended hundreds, maybe thousands of meetings over the years and contributed your expertise, intelligence, and judgment to the hospital, the city, and with your board service to 2 professional organizations. It is always bittersweet when a treasured employee leaves an organization. I am very happy for your new opportunity and wish you much happiness in your new venture in your life. I can't thank you enough for your lengthy and important service to our community. Sincerely, Michelle Hale, Deputy Mayor.
Wow. Thank you so much.
So Deb and I got a chance to spend an hour or so with Debbie. Here, sit down for just a minute here. And you know, from the Deb and I got on the board at the same time, and I think this is our 6th year. I think so, and just our time on the board, seeing your commitment and your passion to your love, you know, for not only the job of credentialing, but the med staff and the way that you engage with the med staff and knowing that all the physicians and the providers in the community really think of you as someone that's really helping them get the job done. And I really appreciate yourself very much. And I really appreciate you spending time talking to me for an hour or so of your life and just helping us get through it. With that, I'll let Deb say something.
I appreciate you allowing me to join you. As I said to you earlier, it's bittersweet. I'm disappointed that you're leaving, but we wish you well. And I really appreciate, I think I mentioned it at the last board meeting, but I really appreciate you and your staff and how they've helped me over the lumps and bumps in my attempts to assist with the credentialing process, both as the secretary and as the fill-in for Kenny sometimes. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to say anything? Dr. Astor, Alex?
Well, I just have to say that the last med staff meeting, sometimes it doesn't draw that much attention, but everybody wanted to come because people knew that it was going to be Deb's last med staff. And people were kind of paying a modest amount of attention to the discussions. And then for the last third of the meeting, when we kind of opened it up for discussions and people telling stories about Deb, people were very enthusiastic. And the whole med staff appreciates the work that you've done. We'll miss you. But we're also excited for you to get an opportunity. So that's great.
Well, definitely it's been my honor and privilege. Thank you so much.
Very nice.
All right, with that, we will move on to our board calendar. Any still on the third?
We are.
We're good, okay, and mentions the same.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we're due for a finance committee meeting, but we have some conflicts with staff, so I'm gonna ask you to postpone that.
Okay,
We were waiting on the, board retreat, plan of governance meeting, so I like to get that through.
so we'll probably have a little bit more update on that next month.
And Amy. Amy.
Okay.
An update, okay,
Updating me.
okay, so now I'd just like to hold off on governance then.
Okay.
Okay.
Max, are you okay with your date?
Sure.
Is there a quality meeting coming up?
There is not one on this calendar.
Yeah.
Your quality meeting, do you have anything have you talked to Dr. Jones?
I have not talked to Dr. Jones. I will not be, in country in May, so.
It's probably won't be
You're happy to have one?
No, we're good.
All right, I will just.
Can't Skype it.
According to my IT, I am not able to get in network at all. That would be a security breach.
Perfect. Okay, so
Thank you.
our board of directors meeting will be on the 28th. With that, someone want to make a motion to approve the calendar?
I move we approve the calendars presented.
Mr. Chairman. No discussion, no comments, it's approved. And that's a time for board comments and questions. The board member want to comments or questions? Nope. All right, seeing no comments and questions, we will take a short 5-minute recess and when we come back, we'll go into executive session. Carl.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Directors of Heartland Regional Hospital recess into executive session to discuss several matters, including those which by law, municipal charter, or ordinance are required to be confidential or involve consideration of records of disclosure, specifically the credentialing report, medical staff meeting minutes, patient safety dashboard, and union negotiations, and to discuss possible Heartland Regional Hospital litigation. Specifically, I came to discuss the facts, litigation strategies with the Bartlett Regional Hospital and city attorneys. And Mr. Chair, I would ask that you be allowed to decide which members of staff you want to keep in the room.
I'll second.
Thanks. Seeing no objections, we are in executive session, but right now, there's some people that Anita will remove in the waiting room. And a reminder, as we go into executive session, if you are online, to make sure that you're in a private area where no one can hear your conversation or see what's going on here as well. So we are getting out of executive session right now. So we'll get everybody back in here. I think we are, and now you want to make a motion. Yeah, hold on 1 second, guys, let's finish this meeting. Hang on, everybody.
Right, let me know when we're back on.
We're back up.
Accept the credentialing committee's report.
Second.
Second.
Actually, Dr.
So is there any comments, questions, or objections? Great, seeing no objections, credentialing report is accepted as submitted. With that, we have come to the end of our agenda and we are officially adjourned right now at 8:15. Good chance. See you later. Thanks, Max.
I had to read. So we all have to about being.
Yeah.